Call to order the Brentwood Board of Aldermen meeting for May 7th, 2018. If you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Your roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt.
Here.
Alderman Kramer.
Present.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Here.
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Weggie.
Here. All right, I count 8, so that's a quorum for sure. Item number 3 on the agenda is the approval of this evening's agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Alderman Lockmiller.
I was wondering if the board would entertain moving item 12A and creating a 14A.
Well, let's see.
I would second that.
I think we've kind of beat this item to death.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we move item 12A to item 14A, which would mean we would do a first and second reading on that item this evening. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, note all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? I count unanimous consent for the motion pass. Item 12A will now become item 14A, and we will do first and second reading. Any other changes to tonight's agenda?
Your Honor, under new business, I'd like to add a discussion about whether we want to accept the Municipal League Innovation Award.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded, new business, discussion, I'm sorry, about whether we want to accept the Municipal League Award?
Yes.
All right.
19B.
19B. Yeah, that'd be a 19B.
Okay.
And Brandon, can I make that a motion to accept or not accept?
Yes.
Which one?
It's a discussion on whether we want to accept that award. So I'll be making a motion that we should not be accepting the
Okay.
award.
All right. Moved and seconded. So any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Motion passes. We'll have item 19B. Any other changes to tonight's agenda? I have one. We do not need to have a closed session this evening, so we will, if I could get a motion to remove the closed meeting from the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this motion? No. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? That was a question. All right. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition to approval by acclamation? Seeing none, it'll be so approved. We have an amended agenda. Item number 4 is consideration and approval of the minutes from the April 16th meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes?
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you. Yeah, I had emailed Bola, but it was late in the day. I don't know if she had a chance to make any changes on that. Okay, so I don't know how we want to handle that, but on page 6, the second full paragraph, there are a number of sentences that need to be reworded or changed. They want me just to tell you what they should be, or do we want to have them go back and try and revise it off the record?
Why don't we make your motion to have staff go back, consider the recommendations that you've made, and re-present?
Okay.
So would that motion get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the minutes of the April 16th meeting be resubmitted to staff for amendment and re-brought back before the board. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will send those back. Item number 5 on the agenda is certification of the election results. Madam City Administrator, do you have the results of the April 3rd, 2018 election?
Thank you, Mayor Thornton. I do have the results of the election results from April 3rd, 2018. So for Alderperson Brentwood, Ward 1, David A. Dimmitt votes 411, percentage 97.62, invalid write-in 10, 2.38%. Alderperson Brentwood Ward 2, Sunny Sims. Total number of votes, 269, 97.11%. Invalid write-in, 8, percentage is 2.89. Alderperson Brentwood Ward 3, Andy G. Leahy. Total number of votes, 296, percentage 93.08. Invalid write-in, 22, percentage 6.92. Lastly, Alderperson Brentwood Ward 4, Kathy O'Neill. Total votes, 138%, 100. Invalid write-in, 0. That is the certified election results.
All right, and as a result of those election of votes, we have some installations and some swearing-ins to do. I think what we'd like to do is do the installation of the new officials and then have a short break, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then come back, if that's acceptable to the board. So with that, I understand Judge Dignam's here to do the swearing. So Judge Dignam, would you like to proceed and swear in Alderman Dimmitt?
I would. Thank you, Judge. Or thank you. Would you raise your right hand? Repeat after me. I, David Dimmitt, do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution and the laws of the State of Missouri. And the ordinances of the City of Brentwood. That I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Alderman. For which I was elected April 3rd, 2018.
And Alderwoman Sunny Sims.
Raise your right hand. I, Sunny Sims,
I, Sunny Sims,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and the laws of the State of Missouri
and the Constitution of the laws of the State of Missouri
and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood.
and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood,
That I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Alderman,
that I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Alderman,
for which I was elected April 3rd, 2018.
for which I was elected April 3rd, 2018.
Alderman Leahy.
You raise your right hand. I, Andrew Leahy,
I, Andrew Leahy,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and the laws of the State of Missouri
and the Constitution and the laws of the State of Missouri
and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood.
and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood,
That I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Alderman,
that I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Alderman,
for which I was elected April 3rd, 2018.
for which I was elected on April 3rd, 2018.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Is that for me?
No.
Would you raise your right hand, please? I, Kathy O'Neill, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the State of Missouri and the ordinances of the City of Brentwood. That I will faithfully demean myself in the office of Alderman, for which I was elected April 3rd, 2018.
Disregard.
I'd like to point out that the judge did that completely without no cards. An impressive performance.
My wife said, don't screw it up.
At this time, if I could get a motion for a break of 15 minutes. It's moved?
Yep. Second.
All in favor of taking a break and reconvening at 7:25? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll break. All right, we're ready to go again.
No, you lost. Bull is out looking for you.
Oh. I'm gonna have to look, I wasn't far.
You're getting
She knocked on the door.
Trying to get off the phone.
Like Sports Authority, was at the Meridian, and then, but the golf.
All right, we're ready to go again. Next up on the agenda is item number 6. Tonight, we've got a presentation of the city's newly adopted comprehensive plan, and I understand Mohit, what he said, is going to present the plan for us, so go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, and well, congratulations to all the re-elected officials. My name is Mohit Maheshwari. I represent Housey Levine Associates, a firm from Chicago. We recently completed comprehensive plan for Brentwood. The plan is called as Brentwood 2020. This is a small 15 to 20 minutes presentation. I like to be quick. And if you see if I'm going too fast, stop me, I can go slowly. Like to cover like 1.5 years of work to like 15 minutes. So in brief, I'll be talking about the project scope, project timeline, define what is a comprehensive plan, some of the major land use decisions that we have made, sub-area plans, details, overall transportation plan, parks and open space plan, and a couple of other components of the project. So the overall project had 4 main components: comprehensive plan, sub-area plans, residential design guidelines, and economic development implementation toolkit. So we kicked this project off in August of 2016. We went through extensive community outreach effort. We had several workshops. We talked with resident workshop, business workshop, chamber of commerce workshop. We talk individually with facility service providers like MoDOT and also MSD and other organizations. Then we also talk one-on-one with key people. And then we had some online mapping tool that we used. So there were a lot of different avenues for getting information to learn about the community. It took about like 6 to 7 months of outreach effort. And then we also individually talked with like a CPAC, which is a comprehensive plan advisory committee, and they advised us on the overall project. So the plan is reflective of all the feedback that we got from the community. Then that outreach culminated into existing condition analysis report that we presented in February of 2017, which basically talked about where the community is right now, what are the key issues community facing. Then we had a visioning session in which it's like a visioning charrette, where we invited people, like residents from the community, and they sat in a room and they drafted the plan, what they want to see Brentwood. So we use that information that we gather, and then and also use our own judgment, professional judgment, and we develop this plan. Then the draft plan, the first draft of the comprehensive plan came out in August. Then it went through several iterative process, a lot of improvements to be made to the plan. And then finally, we had a pretty solid plan in December of 2017. It went through public hearing and also open house. We got again feedback, and then we again another iterative process, and the final plan came out in April 2nd. And then the plan was presented at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it was finally approved on April 11th. And we are here to right now just present to the Board of Aldermen and Mayor. So what is a comprehensive plan? Comprehensive plan is a guidebook for the city that they can make intelligent decisions about land use, development, investment opportunities, capital improvement plans, and so on. It looks for like, it answers 3 important questions: where the community is now. So from the outreach effort, we gathered all that information. We understand what are the key issues community facing. And then the second question is, where do we want to go? That community visioning workshop gave us a very good idea of where community wants to go. And also community outreach also told us what we can do. And then how do we get there? And this is the plan actually, which will help you how to get there. So some of the key highlights of the plan. Every 10 years we revise the plan, and it focus on key important areas of the community. This plan, 2018 plan, primarily focus on three main areas. Not that other areas were ignored, but these are the driving factors for the comprehensive plan. One was Brentwood Boulevard, then Manchester Road, and then Hanley Industrial Court. They are the economic engine. These are the corridors where it travels the most. Most people get to see what Brentwood is all about. So these are the three main areas. So this is the overall land use plan that we developed, and you will see most of the different colors that you see. Primarily, they are on Brentwood Boulevard, Manchester, and Hanley Industrial Court. Other areas are primarily residential in Brentwood. And also area up in the north, which is regional commercial. So we conserve some of the important economic drivers for Brentwood, like the regional commercial along Eager Road. But as you see in the Henley Industrial Court, that's where some of the major land use decisions were made. We try to reposition Henley Industrial Court to attract more of like an incubator kind of a space. It can have some kind of a cottage industry and also startups and things like that. We have worked in like several communities nationwide, and with the latest trend that's going on based on public transportation accessibility to regional transportation system, and where people wants to work and live. So there's a corner area in Henley Industrial Court. If you see here, this was proposed as a mixed-use development. So this is like a major shift in this plan from the previous plan. So this is that, and then Brentwood Boulevard, primarily mixed use, and also a town center area that we have tried to create in this in Brentwood Boulevard. And Manchester Road corridor, it's like a spine for the whole county, and so this area in Brentwood suffers from flooding issues, so it's not developed yet. So we focused on that. We worked with some of the existing plans the city is currently pursuing and trying to develop. So we worked with other consultants and also city, and try to blend comprehensive plan with that, with those efforts. So this is a Brentwood Boulevard sub-area plan, just going into a little bit more detail. So area close to City Hall and Recreation Center, that's the area we propose that to be a town center area. That's where it would be walkable area, so there will be bridges, pedestrian bridges that can be built across that can cross east to west. Then there are some community spaces here, so this is area which would be best for town center. So as you see, like this is the graphic that we use. So the work was like done, like we worked with the city, and then there was other consultants working for the city, so we kind of worked together and use that in our comprehensive plan. So this is like the vision for the town center for Brentwood Boulevard. Area across the recreation center could be revitalized to have more of an active gathering space, and that brings people to the town center. Hanley Industrial Court. Hanley Industrial Court, there are some transportation issues in the Hanley Industrial Court. The road name is pretty confusing, so we proposed to change the name of the road to make it more clear. And also, if you see, we did a small realignment of the road, so it makes like a perfect loop. So there's a small realignment that will create some development opportunities. And on the right graphic here, you will see the live workspace that I talked about. This is the place where you can have businesses, retail on the ground floor, and the residential area on the first floor. And it's close to the a train station, a Metrolink train station, so easily accessible. Easily could be a nice area for attracting millennials population and things like that. Manchester Road. So Manchester Road is a very important area. It's an economic driver for the whole county, not just the Brentwood Boulevard, not just the Brentwood. But right now we are missing a lot of key investment opportunities. Most of the developed area is between Dorothy and Brentwood Boulevard. And if you go either east or west from these locations, you will see lack of investment. So we try to focus our plan on that, try to connect north and south of Manchester Boulevard. So try to improve some of the curb cuts. Very specific detailed information is presented in the plan. So as I mentioned earlier, that we worked with other consultants also here with the city, looked at their plan that they had for Deer Creek flood mitigation, and then also try to see how best we can attract this property once the flooding issue is resolved. What can go there? How the space will look like? So this is a graphic representation of what can be developed. As you see, like there's a development on up west, city of Rock Hill. So this development could be a continuation of that theme that's going on, and then this will be a nice area to develop next. Then the transportation plan, overall transportation plan, there are not a whole lot of major changes. We looked at this plan based on the St. Louis County overall transportation classification. Then there are a couple areas that we have recommendations here, like the name of the road in the Henley industrial area could be changed, small reconfiguration or realignment of the road, and some of the important node location where we can have a gateway feature. So those are identified. At this point, on Manchester Road, east and west, both sides, we don't have a nice, attractive entry feature. So, and I know city is working with another consultant, Arcturus, and then they have developed concepts. So we showed that these are the areas where those attractive entry features can go. Parks and open space plan. As you see, it's kind of hard to see in the PowerPoint, but there are few red trails here, which is on the east side, and they are the existing trails. And all the other trails, primarily like these north-south here and east-west along the condominiums forest, those condominium buildings. These are proposed trails for Brentwood that we can add for the future, and then we can have a big loop network that can cover the entire city, or that it'll make people to take these trails, and they can take their bikes and they can easily walk to wherever they want to go. So this is another component for the project, residential design guidelines. It's still in a kind of a draft stages for the future, because there are other things that needs to go based on the guidelines. But we looked at, there were issues about infill housing development. So we have tried to incorporate a lot of design recommendations that can help city make some important decisions, how they can control any new infill housing project, and so they can easily blend with the existing housing that's already there. So some of it goes into very detail in the design guidelines, talks about accent trims and garages and things like that. So that's covered in the project. And then another last element was the economic development implementation toolkit. So it's very detailed written section in the comprehensive plan. It talks about where city can target their investment, what are the branding strategies that city can do. And I understand city is currently pursuing a branding strategy, so this section can help build onto that. And then also, we talked about some of the city hall management structure in this section. Like we have a recommendation about having to make all these development possible, we need like a dedicated staff. So maybe we have proposed maybe one person could be hired to actually pursue these projects, that they can make it happen. So I think this is it. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Mashahari?
Maheshwari. Yeah, Maheshwari.
I tried.
know.
Questions from the board? Alderman Kramer?
Your Honor, it's more of a compliment. Is that possible? Or?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to compliment you on the depth and the quality of the implementation matrix. A lot of folks who may have seen our previous attempts and or versions of the comprehensive plan saw a lot of visioning and a lot of sampling and a lot of feedback from our residential community and from our commercial community, but it stopped short of, okay, what do we do next? I'm so impressed with the matrix and the toolbox, the way things are laid out to the point where we can almost kind of check things off as we go down the line. And I understand you mentioned that there are some things that are in the draft stage that we still need to work on those, but I just compliments for a fantastic comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions from the board? Alderwoman O'Neill?
Just another comment. I love the idea of Hanley Industrial Park going away as a name and something that is more appropriate. There have been more confused people, I think, trying to find things with the numbering system and all, and I'm very pleased to see that there is a proposal to make that easier for all the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So just to end this, so I know this is an exciting time for City of Brentwood, and if you have any questions on the plan, we are just a phone call away. Just give us a call. We'll try to help you out in any way we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7 on tonight's agenda. We have 3 proclamations this evening. The first is National Police Week, which is May 13th till May 19th of 2018, and I'm going to ask Alderman Kramer to read our proclamation.
Surely, Your Honor, in recognition of the National Police Week, whereas the Congress and the President of the United States of America have designated May 14th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas the members of the Brentwood Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of our city of Brentwood, whereas it is important to know that all citizens understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the Brentwood Police Department has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency, which unceasingly provides a vital public service. Now therefore, I, Christopher Thornton, Mayor of the City of Brentwood, call upon the citizens of the City of Brentwood and upon all patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 14th through the 19th, 2018 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemoration of our police officers past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to the Brentwood community, and in doing so have established themselves as enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and securities of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of the City of Brentwood to observe May 14th, 2018 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, to honor those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or become disabled in the performance of duty. Done at the City Hall this 14th day of May 2018.
All right, thank you. Our second proclamation this evening is for Kids to the Park Day, which is May 19th. So Kids to the Park Day sounds like a really good idea. My kids are a little old for that, but, you know. Go ahead.
Your Honor, in recognition of the Kids to the Parks Day proclamation, whereas May 19th, 2018 is the 8th Kids to Parks Day, organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the third Saturday of May, and whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks. And whereas it is very important to introduce a new generation to our nation's parks, whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat the issues of childhood obesity, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia. Say that 10 times fast. Whereas Kids to Parks Day is open to all children and adults across the country to encourage a large and diverse group of participants, and whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Christopher Thornton, Mayor of the City of Brentwood, do hereby proclaim May 19th, 2018, as Kids to the Parks Day in the City of Brentwood and urge all citizens to take part in Kids to Park Day. Further, urging all citizens to make time to celebrate May 19th, 2018, and take children to celebrate their lives in the neighborhood to a state or national park.
And I would just throw in our county and city parks could also be used for same purpose. All right, the third proclamation this evening is National Public Works Week, which is May 20th to May 26th. Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. In recognition of National Public Works Week, whereas public works facilities and services are of vital importance to the health, safety, and overall integral part of the people of the City of Brentwood, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the support of an informed citizenry and the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, administrators, and personnel representing all levels of government, who are responsible for and must plan, design, construct, operate, and maintain transportation, refuse disposal, sewer laterals, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to the serving of our citizens. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works functions is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Whereas the theme for this year's celebration is Public Works Connects Us, and 2018 marks the 58th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And so now, therefore, I, Christopher Thornton, Mayor of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, do hereby proclaim May 20th through the 26th as National Public Works Week in the City of Brentwood, Missouri, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Presented this 7th day of May, 2018.
All right. I think that does it for proclamations. We also have a public hearing this evening. Public hearing is on a text amendment to our zoning code, which came to us from our Planning and Zoning Commission, which recommends that the Board of Aldermen consider amending the code to allow and regulate short-term rentals, which was taken up here at our last meeting, if you recall. So at this point in time, if anyone at this point in time, I'd like to open the public hearing. So we're going to open the public hearing on the text amendment to allow and regulate short-term rentals. If anyone would like to come forward and address the Board of Aldermen, please do so. I don't.
I'll say something briefly.
Sure.
Kathy Thomas, Madge Avenue. Please excuse the attire. I hope that you all take this into very serious consideration. I am in favor of regulating so that there is oversight and control of any short-term rentals that may operate in Brentwood. Okay?
Thank you. And just so everybody in the audience is aware, so at our last meeting, the board did approve an ordinance that clarified our code so that as it stands right now, and I just signed the ordinance last week, short-term rentals are prohibited in the city of Brentwood. That's where we stand right now. So this would change that to allow short-term rentals and regulate them. But as it stands right now, we are not allowing short-term rentals.
Karen Smith, and I live on Harrison. And I spoke previously and in favor of you supporting the bill that you passed at the last meeting that does prohibit them, as opposed to the bill that's before you tonight that would allow them with regulations. And I think I stated last time that, you know, in principle, I feel like the short-term rentals undermines what we try and build in our community by having zoning that calls for residential homes. And when you allow the Airbnbs and the traffic turnover of individuals that are staying in what is typically considered a home, that doesn't really contribute to building the community. I think that there's a lot of positive things that have been said about what Airbnbs do bring, but I feel like that doesn't override what is very important to us, which is to establish, you know, areas of the city where we allow commerce to happen, areas of the city where we have homes and residents where people live and build neighborhoods. I think some of the regulations that are in front of you with this current one could even be strengthened further if you do allow Airbnbs with regulations. I would like to see the regulations strengthened even more than they currently are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address the Board of Aldermen regarding the proposed text amendment?
Hi, I'm Catherine Segastrian. I live on Litzinger Drive. And I worked in hotels for over 20 years, and there is a tourism tax that goes with staying in a hotel. And if you stay in an Airbnb, you don't pay that tax. And that money goes to the zoo, the museums around town, and other things that are supported by tourists. So if you have somebody staying in an Airbnb, where is that money going? Because they're not paying it. So I think you're shortchanging our community by not. So I think you should not have Airbnbs in Brentwood.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address the board regarding the proposed text amendment? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Number 9 on the agenda, we have no bids this evening. Number 10 on the agenda is the hearing of any matter of public interest upon the request of any person present. If anyone would care to come forward and address the board on any topic, do so. Come forward and you'll be given at least 3 minutes to speak.
I'm Karen Meyer, 8726 Pine Avenue in Brentwood. I have owned my home in Brentwood for 45 years. I'm moving to Florida. I have one daughter. She is in Florida in Winter Springs with her husband and a 6-year-old child, and I'm very fortunate to be able to make this move at this time. I wanted to come and say goodbye to everyone. I have really enjoyed living in Brentwood, having my home here. And I see the energy that's occurring in Brentwood now, the changes that are happening. It's very exciting. I'm sorry I'm not going to be here to see it all come together. But I wish you all a very, very good, strong community. I will miss you all. I've enjoyed knowing everyone. And I've got to go home and pack.
Thank you. Anyone else care to come forward and address the board? And hopefully not any more people saying goodbye. Mr. Williams.
That's a hard act to follow. Wow. Barry Williams, also Pine Avenue, a little bit west of Karen. And I've got 3 items for you. The first is a belated thank you to the city for putting in a piece of sidewalk on Pine Avenue near Hatton Avenue. And I think that actually occurred last summer or fall. I haven't been here much lately. I haven't had a chance to thank you folks for that. And I especially want to thank the 2 Ward 1 aldermen, David Dimmitt and David Plufka, City Administrator Bola Akande, and Public Works Director Dan Gummersheim for making that possible. And as a result of that project, now Pine Avenue can boast having 2 complete sidewalks, one on either side of the street, all the way from Brentwood Boulevard to McKnight Road. There had always been that one missing gap, that one piece there that was missing. So thank you very much for doing that. Second, I have a suggestion for that vexing property in Ward 3 at the northwest corner of Hanley and Manchester, by the Black Creek. And you know what I think the city should do, honestly, is just keep that as green space. Extend Oak Tree Park southward to Manchester Road. And when MoDOT finishes the better sidewalk in a few years along Manchester, the Oak Tree Park Trail can meet with it. And I just don't see any good development options there because of the difficulty with the traffic access on both Hanley and Manchester and the floodplain there at the Black Creek. Why not just extend the park down a little further south to Manchester, keep it as green space? Another thought I had is some of that land is graded. You know, there used to be a Memphis Barbecue and a Burger King there and their parking lots. And I actually was over there walking that a few hours ago looking at it. And back in the 60s when I was a kid in Brentwood, a lot of us kids enjoyed playing miniature golf. There was a putt-putt golf course right across the street from that site. Some of you may remember that. What's now called Breckenridge Industrial Court was the original Summit Avenue. And at the corner of Summit and Manchester, you had one of the original Ray Kroc McDonald's, where Popeyes is today. That was a McDonald's franchise that opened around 1958. The company only opened in 1955, so it was probably one of the first, I'm going to guess, 30 McDonald's restaurants in the country right here in Brentwood. That was on the southwest corner, and then on the southeast corner, roughly where the car wash and Joy Luck Buffet are today, was a very fun, floodplain-friendly land use. It was this putt-putt golf course with very elaborate fairways. You know, there were like windmills. You had to hit the ball between the blades of the windmills and such. And I was thinking that maybe that land, again, could be part of Oak Tree Park, but maybe the city could contract with one of the miniature golf companies to design a putt-putt golf course there on that flat land. There's enough land there for the golf course and the parking lot. And, you know, we're already very lucky and distinctive to have a municipal ice skating rink. Very few municipalities have those in this area. And if we add to that with a miniature golf course, we'll really be right there at the top in terms of destinations here in the region. And the last thing I wanted to tell you is this is an announcement I'm very pleased to make. This took about half of a lifetime, but I finally got the city limit signs restored on Brentwood Boulevard at the Richmond Heights line by the interstate highway interchange. What happened was back in, who knows when, I think it was the 1980s, when before MoDOT, it was called the Missouri Highway Department, and before Interstate 64 ever came into St. Louis County, it was the Daniel Boone Expressway, United States 40. I think it was in the 1980s that the Missouri Highway Department widened the freeway and they removed the old clover leaf. There was an original clover leaf there, and they replaced it with a somewhat higher speed diamond interchange. And when they did that, they took out those signs, and those signs have been missing ever since for about 30 years. And I've been trying to get those signs put back sort of on and off, you know, for the last like 30 years. I would try, you know, and then 5 years would go by and I'd try again, and, you know, 5 or 10 more years would go by, and, you know, I could never get it done. They finally were put up a few days ago. So I'm glad to make that accomplishment from my hometown. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't help the reference to Ray Kroc and persistence. I think Barry took it to heart there. Anyone else care to come forward and address the board? Do we have any aldermanic response? Seeing none. I don't believe we have any unfinished business this evening. Oh, sure, yeah.
Kathy on Madge again. I have a question about the stop sign. I think it's I guess that's Ward 1, right before you get to 40 on Litzinger. Is there any way to make that a flashing yellow, or, it causes so much congestion in the morning. It's just a thought. I don't expect an answer from you right now, but has it ever been discussed ad nauseum from the look on your face? Yes?
Are you talking about Litzinger Road or McKnight Road?
Midnight, thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so moot point, just move along?
Yeah. So, do we have Aldermanic response? Alderman
Sure.
Plofka, I know
Yeah.
you're familiar with this issue.
Yeah, I live in that subdivision. It would be impossible for people that live in that subdivision to get into that subdivision at various times during the day, every single day. Because you couldn't turn left, because no one would be stopping, and you would back up onto Highway 40. And so MoDOT came to us when they redid 64 and when they redid the exchange. We talked about signalizing that entire intersection completely with a full signal, red, stop light. They would not let us do that because of its potential to back up the ramps, which already back up, but they said it would have made it worse, and also the backup on the bridge itself. And I know that if that stop sign ever went away, I think my house would probably be the first one burned to the ground by the people in my subdivision. But other than that, no. There's a lot of people that depend. There's 140 homes in that subdivision, and there's about half of them that depend on that stop sign being there to be able to get in and out of the subdivision with the level of traffic on McKnight Road.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other Aldermanic response? Seeing none, I don't think we have any unfinished business this evening, which brings us to item number 12. And the first on the list with the amended agenda is 12B. So it's bill number 6193. Mr. City Attorney, can we have first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6193, first reading and ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, approving a second amendment to the amended and restated medical agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri, SSM Healthcare St. Louis, and Clayton Emergency Group, LLC.
Thank you. Alderman Kramer, synopsis?
Surely, Your Honor, a little bit further illumination for the bill 6193, the EMS Medical Director Agreement, and that's the ordinance for the City of Brentwood authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into that agreement, and a second amendment to amend and restate the medical agreement between the City of Brentwood and SSM Healthcare St. Louis Clayton Emergency Group, LLC, and providing for the effective date. The Brentwood Fire Department would like to continue a medical director agreement renewal with SSM Health and Clayton Emergency Group, LLC. 2014, our fire department entered into an agreement with SSM Health and Clayton Emergency Group, LLC for medical direction oversight for our medical emergency services. The original agreement has been extended since 2014, now requires approval to continue. The Board of Aldermen authorized the original agreement via Ordinance 4539 and renewed the agreement via Ordinances 4720 in June 2016. The medical director is required by the state of Missouri to oversee our ambulance service, provide medical treatment protocols, and provide direction for our paramedic staff. The original agreement includes SSM Health and Clayton Emergency Group, LLC. This is all part of the language in Bill number 6193.
And I understand Chief Curtin has information for us.
Thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. This is simply an extension of a contract that's been in place since 2014. It's a no-cost agreement, and we're just asking for your permission to proceed with renewing it.
Any questions? Alderman Plufka.
Does it continue to be that we share the same EMS medical director agreement as does Maplewood and Richmond Heights?
I don't know that it's identical, but they are our medical control for the same agencies. So Brentwood.
Same SSM?
Correct.
Okay.
That part I know for sure. I couldn't speak to the contract being identical.
I didn't mean it that way.
Okay.
I misspoke. I meant the SSM delivery.
So SSM is medical control for just about everybody around here, aren't they? Except Ladue, I think.
The only exception is Clayton.
Clayton,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. And that continues to be sort of promotes your ability to work together with those other
Absolutely,
departments?
yes. So the protocols that we addressed in the synopsis was that vehicle that allows that to function intra-agency, if you will.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Item number 12, well, it's 12C on the original agenda, 12B now, is bill number 6194. Mr. City Attorney, can we have the first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6194, first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to execute a contract on behalf of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, with Kimberly K. Gwynn for the purchase of certain real property located in Brentwood, Missouri, known as 8746 Eulalie Avenue, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. Alderman Kramer, can we have a synopsis, please?
Surely, Your Honor, Bill number 6194 covers the acquisition of 8746 Eulalie Avenue, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and our city administrator to execute that contract on behalf of our city with Kimberly K. Gunn for the purchase of certain real property located here in our city known as 8746 Eulalie, and providing for the effective date of that agreement. The city has been purchasing property in proximity to the Brentwood City Hall and Fire Station for the future expansion of city facilities and additional parking areas. The recently adopted comprehensive plan includes a sub-area plan for the South Brentwood Boulevard corridor, and that sub-area plan notes the continued development of a town center and the inclusion of key landmarks such as City Hall, library, fire station, and recreation complex within the town center. The plan promotes the continued development of community uses and developing connections between those facilities to create a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly town center here in our city. The purchase price of 8746 Eulalie Avenue, the property at $195,000. 10 days after the real estate agreement was signed by both parties, the sum of $5,000 earnest deposit was deposited with First American Title Insurance Company. Estimated closing cost $5,000. The total cost, therefore, $200,000. On April 2nd of this year, the Board of Aldermen voted in closed session on staff recommendation to purchase the property. The votes were tabulated as follows. Alderman Plufka, no. Alderman Dimmitt, no. Alderman Weggie, yes. Alderman Sims, yes. Alderman Leahy, no. Alderman Lockmiller, no. Alderman Kramer, yes. Alderman O'Neill, yes. Tie was 4-4 votes. Mayor Thornton broke the tie with a yes vote. This is contained all inside the language of Bill number 6194.
All right, thank you. My understanding is Terry, Chief Curtin, and Bola will assist.
Yes. I thought it was the other way around.
Oh, okay. Hey, however y'all want to do it, that's fine with me.
I'm just teasing. So, this is a very opportunistic time for the fire department and the city with this property acquisition potential. We have an issue in the fire station. Well, let me back up. So there's several reasons that I wanted to talk about tonight. First and foremost, I think my biggest concern is if we lose the opportunity to purchase this property, which can provide some benefit in several ways, in which I'll name here in just a minute for the city going forward, and a new home was built on this lot, we will never have the opportunity to acquire that ground. And the reason why I think it's important, I'm going to list to you now. First of all, y'all are aware of the fact that the building is without an elevator, and there has been extensive research when Chief Jury was the chief about how to work through that process. Basically, the engineering firm Horner and Schifrin was brought on board to do a study within the building and determine how best to address the elevator issue. There was no good opportunity to really address it. When the building was built, everything was value engineered out of the building for the elevator. There's no footings, there's no foundation, there's no steel work, there's nothing in the core of the building where that was to be housed. So going back and doing that is going to be extremely disruptive internally. We're going to lose square footage on the first floor and second floor, which we really need. And it's going to be extremely costly because of the construction limits that they can do working in a functioning building. Horner and Schifrin also pointed out to us if there was ever an opportunity in the future to acquire that piece of property to the east, that it would be a much more cost-beneficial way to solve the elevator problem by building a shaft on the east wall of the fire station that would punch through to the first floor and second floor and allow ADA access throughout the building. That would help provide accessibility to our second floor training room, which is a premier facility that could be utilized for public meetings that we cannot necessarily advertise or have currently without access for everybody. So that's a big issue there. The other thing is I think as a byproduct of acquiring that ground and at some point in time building a parking lot over there in conjunction with a new elevator access, we will free up parking spaces at City Hall because we'll move our employee parking over there. It will also allow additional parking for our mutual aid partners who enjoy the training facility that we share. So that's another nice feature. I think the one other thing that came to my mind today was if I'm living in a neighborhood with a fire station right next door to me, how nice would it be to have a buffer between the building where all the activity is and the neighborhood? So it provides roughly a 50-foot buffer to the east that would basically be no buildings, just parking lot, probably a nice privacy fence, something like that to sort of help break that somewhat commercial environment into the neighborhood area. So those are the main talking points I have. Bola, did you have anything else?
I couldn't have said it any better.
So I would ask, this is a rare opportunity to have this come along. My understanding is when the building was originally built, there was contact made with the resident that owns that building. A deal was apparently in the works, but at the 11th hour it fell through from what I'm told. I had nothing to do with that, but that's what I understand. So this has come up again. I think it came up last year and they couldn't come to agreement on it. And this opportunity now would be something I think would be very beneficial going forward if you all agree. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Alderman Lockmiller.
Chief, there's a spot of land just to the east in between the house and the firehouse. That we
That sort of alleyway through there? Yes, sir.
Is that inadequate for an elevator shaft?
So I can't speak educatedly on this because I haven't seen a plot plan with Horner and Schifrin, but my understanding is the setbacks that they need to make this work to follow our code are not enough without it.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
I have a question about the need for the elevator. If there is a joint training exercise, everyone at that should be physically adequate to get to the second floor. If there is a public meeting there, I see no reason why it can't be relocated. We have the rec center, we do have rooms here. When I toured the Maplewood Firehouse a couple weeks ago with the new one, they have a wonderful training room or something that could be used for community access, and it's on the lower level, so it's ADA compliant. I'm questioning if we are looking at this for an elevator when we probably don't need it. I understand that it's being driven by ADA for public access. I don't see that that's necessary. Is there a reason that we must have it, or can we not do the elevator?
Alderwoman O'Neill, I'd like to defer to Bola because we did an ADA study with, and I don't remember the woman's name that did it.
Terry Johnson.
Maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Correct.
And she, I don't exactly know what her title was. Chief Jury worked with her, but my understanding was she was the ADA coordinator that deemed it necessary for us to have that with that training room on the second floor. You know, if we could turn back time, I would love to have had the training room on the first floor, but I'm just following what was prescribed to us by an expert in the ADA law.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to see if I could offer a clarification and a slight bit of, illumination further for the synopsis. The Board of Aldermen have developed kind of an ongoing practice in our purchasing of properties when they're approved to use an appraisal. And the purchase of this property would be no different. There was an appraisal performed, it was purchased, and it is at the purchase price. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. And also highlight the difference between the purchase price and the total acquisition costs. So the purchase price, yes, in this case is $195, but there are the other costs, the closing costs and so forth, that add into the total acquisition cost of the property, and that's why it's $200,000 instead of $195. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. Kind of building on Alderwoman O'Neill's point, the the use of the room for training purposes does not get to ADA compliance, correct? Because that's still internal typically.
My understanding is the ADA report that was published several years ago
13.
indicated it was a requirement of them.
Even if it's an internal meeting that you're having with your people.
I
about
apologize, Alderman. I have not reviewed the report prior to tonight, so my apologies for that. But
I don't believe that, whether it's an internal meeting or it's an external meeting, the fact that there is a training room on a second floor in a building that we consider has been deemed to be a public building, that there needs to be access for those, whether they're employees or whether they're residents or whomever else, to be able to safely get upstairs.
I believe all publicly owned buildings are public buildings within the meaning of the ADA. Yes.
You know, an example that I might offer is that we had our open house on I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Before I let you finish that thought, I just wanted to ask a question about that. So it was built not compliant because it is certainly a publicly owned building. Do we have a requirement to remediate that?
By abandoning its use, we have avoided an immediate remediation problem.
Okay. Okay, so the use of that room for any purpose would bring this issue front and center?
We believe so.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
This is just my own personal thoughts. We had our open house on Saturday. We had a tremendous turnout, and we did not have a situation where we had a young boy or a young girl that wanted to tour the fire station in a wheelchair show up. Had we had that, we'd have bent over backwards to figure out a way to get the chair and the child upstairs manually, because I would never want to deprive a child of that opportunity and experience. But this would help us solve that problem and make a public building fully accessible to anybody with needs of that type.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Sims.
Mr. O'Keefe, am I understanding you correctly that have we abandoned the second floor and therefore we avoid having to be ADA compliant? Is
No,
that?
The use of the room for any purposes, for any public purposes.
So what is it? So we only use it.
So right now, it's only used by fire department staff because their job requirement says they have to be able to climb those stairs. They have to be able to do physical things like that.
And so this brand new fire building that we have, approximately what percentage size is this room that we are not able to use except for internal?
I don't know. I'm going to guess it's maybe 1,500 or 1,600 square feet, give or take. I may be off a little bit, but that's my best guess.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it seats, I think,
It's a big
24,
room.
it seats 24, 25 people, give or take.
I mean, the primary use has been the fire department, but when we have mandatory meetings for all employees, and those that aren't mandatory, whether we're having webinars or just training in general, we have our meetings there because there's technology that the city has invested in that room. There's a smart board, there's microphones, there's Wi-Fi that gives us better accessibility to that technology that we're making available to ourselves. So if all of a sudden we now say, well, we're gonna, what was the word you used? Abandon.
That's what caught my ear. Like-
Yeah, that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars that have already been spent that we're now abandoning.
No, thank you.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the risk of sounding somewhat aloof, why are we having to deal with this? I thought we voted on this.
So this is the actual bill to complete the purchase. What we voted on in closed session was the authorization to make the offer.
Okay.
So
All right.
the actual purchase of the property needs to take place in an open meeting and so
Okay.
forth.
Okay, so it's, as long as that training room is not being used for a public purpose, then we do not have to retrofit this building with an elevator that should have been constructed in the first place. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's what we believe. That's our story, and we're sticking to it.
And so by using this training room for a public purpose, then we have to look at spending $200,000 for this piece of land, plus hundreds of thousands of dollars for construction of an elevator, simply to be able to use this room for public purpose. Is that fair?
I may have oversimplified my first answer.
Okay.
And this may or may not be the best forum for a complete discussion of the issue. But the ADA requires that public facilities be built fully accessible. Okay? We did not. Now, I don't think, as I read the ADA, that requirement depends on whether the public is actually invited. We have not thus far been involved in any enforcement action which would compel remediation of that circumstance, regardless of our use of the facility.
Well, it's a three-story building.
Approximately in height, yes, sir. It's
I mean,
actually two.
Are the
but-
living quarters on the same?
Yes, sir. Second
same
floor.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wiggy.
Considering the question is about a property acquisition, I call the question.
It was only the first
This
reading.
is first reading
Nope,
only.
you're right. My bad.
Oh, you can move to limit debate. You can move to closed debate. Closed discussion.
I think it's over. We've gone down a rat hole on this.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I think you're right. All right, so moving along to item number 13, we don't have any bills for second reading tonight. We have one item to be given a first and second reading tonight. It's bill number 6192. Mr. City Attorney, can we have the first reading by title only, please?
Bill number 6192, first reading, an ordinance amending certain sections in Chapter 400 relating to the regulation of short-term rentals of dwelling units in the A, B, AR, MR residential zoning districts and the UD urban development zoning district.
Thank you. Alderman Kramer, do we have a synopsis?
We do, Your Honor. Bill number 6192 covers again those text amendments to the regulation of short-term rentals in our residential districts, UD, Urban Development District. Case number 18-01 for the City of Brentwood, an ordinance amending certain sections in Chapter 400 relating to the regulation of short-term rentals of dwelling units in A, B, AR, MR residential zoning districts and the UD Urban Development Zoning District. Short-term rentals are defined as rentals of dwelling units for periods of less than a month typically. At the November 8th, 2017 Public Works Committee meeting, the committee directed staff to forward proposed text amendments to Chapter 400 of the City Zoning Code to clarify and continue the prohibition of short-term rentals to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review and consideration. On March 14th, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 3 in favor, 4 opposed on the bill prohibiting short-term rentals. That same bill prohibiting short-term rentals moved forward to the Board of Aldermen for consideration with an unfavorable recommendation to approve from the Commission. On April 16th, 2018, the Board of Aldermen adopted Ordinance 4831, continuing the prohibition of short-term rentals in our city. During this process, some members of the Planning and Zoning Commission expressed interest in developing regulations to allow short-term rentals. Staff presented text amendments of those to regulate short-term rentals at the April 11, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The proposed text amendments include adding regulations for short-term rentals requiring them to obtain a business license, a short-term certificate of occupancy, limiting the city to issue no more than 20 business licenses for the short-term rental of residential property in each license year. No more than 1 business license shall be issued to any applicant, and the business license shall only apply to the applicant's primary residence. A motion was made and seconded to recommend approval of the regulations to permit short-term rentals. The commission voted as follows: 4 yes, 7 no. So the bill regulating short-term rentals moves forward to the Board of Aldermen this evening for consideration with an unfavorable recommendation to approve from the commission. This is bill number 6192.
All right, thank you. My understanding is Director of Planning and Development Kirkemeyer has information for us on this one.
Thank you. So hopefully the synopsis did a fairly good job kind of all bringing us to this point. Really all I can say in conclusion is The Planning and Zoning Commission, when they've addressed the short-term rental issue, there's just more division among some of the members about prohibiting them or regulating them. And so I can explain the votes again and what happened if there's a little bit of still confusion. But more or less, really, the prohibition ordinance, which you already acted upon and voted to support it, came to you from the P&Z with an unfavorable recommendation because there wasn't enough votes to support it. And now we're here tonight with another ordinance to regulate short-term rentals, which again comes before you with the commission with not a favorable vote from the P&Z Commission. So I'm here to answer questions, or if you're...
Are there any questions for Lisa? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And since we're going to do a first and second reading, I'd ask the city attorney to give us the second reading by title only, please.
Bill number 6192, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance amending certain sections in Chapter 400 relating to the regulation of short-term rentals of dwelling units in the A, B, AR, MR residential zoning districts and the UD urban development zoning district.
Thank you. And I would entertain a motion to perfect at this time.
Your Honor, I'll make that motion to perfect Bill 6192 into ordinance form.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Board of Aldermen perfect Bill number 6192 into ordinance form. Discussion is now appropriate. Any discussion on the ordinance? Seeing none? Oh, Alderman Kramer, sorry.
Just for edification purposes, Your Honor, just a clarification. A no vote on this bill would be continuing the action of the board from the previous ordinance prohibiting short-term rentals.
You've gone and stolen my thunder.
Okay, sorry. My apologies.
No, not at all. Seeing no discussion, I was about to call for a vote, and I was going to point out to the board exactly that. So a no vote on this ordinance is a vote to maintain our current status, which is prohibiting short-term rentals in Brentwood. A yes vote on this ordinance would be a vote to change that status to allow them with regulation. So that is how the voting works, and I think we're ready for a roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt?
No.
Alderman Kramer?
No.
Alderman Leahy?
No.
Alderman Lockmiller?
No.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
No.
Alderman Plufka?
No.
Alderwoman Sims?
No.
Alderman Waggy?
No.
I count 0 ayes and 8 noes, so the ordinance will not pass. All right. That brings us to item number 15 on tonight's agenda, which is resolutions. And not to be outdone, we have several of those. Every item has several. Anyway, so tonight, the first resolution is resolution number 1084.1 concerning the city sewer lateral repair program. Alderman Kramer, do you have a synopsis of the resolution?
I do, Your Honor.
Great.
This is a slight change from the previous resolution. Resolution number 1084.1, the newer version, the Sewer Lateral Repair Program, a resolution adopting a revised policy for administration of the city's sewer lateral repair program. The board requested clarification on the $7,250 repair cost ceiling referenced under item number 11 of the December 2017 revisions to the residential sanitary sewer lateral repair policy and procedures. At the April 2018 Public Works Committee meeting, a motion was made by Alderman Leahy, seconded by Alderman Dimmitt, to recommend to the full Board of Aldermen the sewer lateral repair program policy revisions, which would limit claims to $7,250 maximum per fiscal year per property. The cost ceiling, as presented, was an aggregate claim, which included the cleaning, cabling cost, plus any repair cost not to exceed the $7,250 threshold. At that time, the roll call, Alderman Lockmiller, yes. Alderman Leahy, yes. Alderman Dimmitt, yes. Alderman Weggie was absent at that meeting. The motion did pass. Proposed policy revision includes cost ceiling clarification under item number 11 of the policy and item 2 of the property owner release. Additionally, item 9 of the policy and item 5 of the property owner release were revised. The proposed policy revisions continue to include multifamily unit program participation for buildings that are 6 units or less. Buildings exceeding 6 units will no longer be eligible. Staff requests the Board of Aldermen repeal Resolution 1084 for the sewer lateral repair program and adopt the new Resolution 1084.1.
All right, thank you. Dan Gummersheimer is here.
No, I don't know if you have any specific questions. As the synopsis alluded to, we did meet several times to discuss this. We looked at comparator cities and what their cost ceilings were. Of the comparators, the median is $7,250. That's how we arrived at that. Few cities are higher, some are lower. I know Baldwin's is $3,000, Clayton's is $3,000, but you can only have one time in a 3-year period that you can claim your sewer lateral. And then others, they're limited to each fiscal year as long as there's funds available for their sewer lateral programs. And then as also mentioned, the 6 dwellings per building, that will be enforced. Currently, they were collecting for units that were greater than 6 as well, which would be Brentwood Forest.
Any questions for Director Gummersheimer? Alderman Lucknow.
Dan, item number 5 on the first page of the policy, the first line, it says it'll be the responsibility of the city to replace sidewalks, driveways, and streets. I understand sidewalks and streets, but driveways, does that kind of lean towards people thinking that private driveways are going to be?
In some instances, we've had to replace driveways because the cleanout's in the driveway. I know in particular, there's one on the east side of Brentwood Boulevard, I want to say just south of Strassner, and then we had another one that was over on either Madge or Powell, where the cleanout's in the driveway. So in order to replace the cleanout, the driveway had to be repaired as a result of excavation. But generally speaking, we should not need to replace driveways if the lateral and cleanout are located in the grassy areas.
I think we're trying to get away from responsibility of the city to go on private property and do repairs.
Yeah, because we've had to replace sidewalks if the break is near where its connection point is with the MSD line, and you over excavate, put your shoring in, so you usually pick up a slab or two that you have to replace.
Other questions? Alderwoman Sims.
I have a couple questions. Is this policy, is this gonna be something that, I mean, I'm thinking my lateral line is blocked, someone shows up, they hand me this thing I need to sign. I mean, is this policy something that, you know, a layman property owner is gonna be reviewing and signing off on, or is this?
Yeah, we were actually going to roll it out and give it to each and every one of them, even if it's less than the limit, just because this is a new policy. And we would need to put this on social media, newsletters. I know in the case of Brentwood Forest and on their website, it talks about the gateway sewer lateral line to call, but that needs to be clarified in the sense that if you're in an 8 unit, a 10 unit, that would no longer apply.
It's to that point, on paragraph 11, I certainly know what the fiscal year is because I just asked Alderman Dimmitt what that is for Brentwood.
Yes.
I think you're making the assumption that Alderman Dimmitt knows.
Would there be any problem with just putting a parenthetical that that's January 1 to December 31? Just so because it could be July 1 for some people. That just what that period is, where it's, you know, highlighted and bolded, so someone who made
calendar year
to minimize confusion or ambiguity, because different institutions have different fiscal years.
We're getting dangerously close to debating and amending the resolution. And at this point, at this point, we're not, and I'm sorry but I just don't want to do a free-for-all on, once we move to adopt it, if we want to amend it or send it back with some recommendations, we can do that. So, question, Alderman Kramer. Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't done with your questions.
Yeah,
I apologize. My fault. Go ahead.
On paragraph 14, at the last line where it says lien waiver and 1-year limited warranty shall be furnished to property owner if requested, do you know why? I guess it's something that needs to be requested as opposed to something that would automatically be furnished to the property owner?
Yeah, we thought if they wanted it, like say you had an outside contractor do the work, because the outside contractor's working for the city, if you want to see that warranty between the city and the contractor, we can provide it to the property owner.
But am I understanding it that warranty, the benefit of the warranty goes to the property owner, right?
Right, so if something came apart, they put together the the boot that connects from clay to, say, PVC. If for whatever reason that failed, then that would be warranty work because it would fall under workmanship.
Okay. But the way this is written, the owner would have to ask for that information.
Right. Or the owner would need to call the city and say, hey, I had work done last year. Is it still under warranty? And we should be able to look through our invoices and pinpoint for that address when that work was completed and then calculate that 1 year period.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan, on the owner information sheet,
Oh, yes.
this is something that the homeowner would be provided and they would sign this?
Yeah, the goal was to give them the whole policy, give them the 2 pages leading up to that plus that last page. They would sign off on it, we would scan it in, file it. We've got 2 that are actually exceeding that amount, which we have not approved yet because we want this signed off on.
The only question I have on there is the paragraph, is I agree to hold the city of Brentwood and the approved contractor harmless from damages that could result from this work. The way that that's worded, would the homeowner still be able to pursue any action against the contractor if it turns out that the work was not done in a professional manner, if they're having some problem? I mean, what we were trying to do at Public Works is, like we say, get the city out of it. So they're not coming to the city, they're going to the contractor.
Mhm.
Does that language still leave that avenue open for the homeowner? Or is the contractor
think that's a
absolved at
separate
that point?
Good evening. Technically, it's a release or a hold harmless for consequential damages, not a waiver of the expectation of workmanlike
Okay,
performance of the job. But it would certainly muddy the waters.
okay. Can we remove that and just have it so that we are relieving?
I think there are ways to do this better than that.
Okay, so we're just releasing the city.
Alderman Kramer?
I'm done.
Oh, you're done.
I'm all
I thought he was.
Thank you, Your Honor. Director Gumersheimer, I noted in your May 7th, 2018 memo to the board, I guess to the city administrator, copy to the board, there's a compilation of the study of the other municipalities. And I noted that I guess the majority of them have their limit per project or per claim, and not per year. Much in the same way, if you have automobile insurance purchased, your claim would be limited for not the year, but for the claim. And so my question is, further on in the memo, it goes to discuss the possibility of the depletion of the program based upon this limit being in place or not being in place. Is it your belief that if we had a limit of $7,250 per claim, that we would still be okay, or do you think we need to have it per year?
We were doing the 7250 as an aggregate because the comparators don't allow cleaning. So if you had your line, for some odd reason, you would dump grease down it multiple times on a weekend, it's $130 an hour to cable it out. So you could have multiple cleanings, plus if you had a catastrophic failure, when you add that all up, that could or could not exceed the 7250. In this case, we're saying that aggregate should not exceed it. If it does, whatever overrun is on the residents, responsibility.
But if we had the $7,250 per claim limit, do you think that would bankrupt the project, the protection?
I know what complicates it is the amount of assessment coming in, removing the Brentwood forest. Right now it's rough number 193,000, but pulling some of them out plus not having that aggregate, I think will deplete it quicker, if that makes sense.
Okay. So on balance, you are worried if we had the 7,250 as a per limit or per.
I'm more worried about the cleaning in some instances because, it's multiple times and, rough number, it was a little over 40,000 that we spent of the total budget just in cleaning alone. And in some instances, it's roots, it's grease, it's, your kid threw toys down, whatever. But, it always says like in the Gateway report of what they encountered. A lot of times, like I said, it's grease. People should know better, but they do it anyways. But, the program doesn't disallow it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Dan.
Okay.
If someone would care to make a motion to adopt?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 1084.1.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Leahy, seconded by Alderman Lockmiller, the board adopt Resolution 1084.1. Any discussion? Alderman Demmett.
Is now the time to talk about possible?
Now's the time to talk about all the things you want.
Well, I would like to see if we can change the language so that it's clear that the homeowner is not releasing the contractor for workman, doing the work in a workmanlike manner.
And I'll leave it up to the board. If the board is comfortable continuing to vote the resolution with the instruction that that be clarified and just move along, or if we need to have it clarified and then brought back, that's at the board's pleasure. Alderman Sims.
I don't want to speak, I have some additional
Go ahead.
suggestions, but I don't
Go
want
ahead.
to speak out of turn.
Same thing applies to
Okay.
anything else you might want to.
Two things that I touched on earlier in paragraph 11, I would just move or ask that, after, it's clear what fiscal year means, if that's January 1 to December 31st, so to reduce ambiguity. And then, in light, I think it partners with what Alderman Dimmitt said previously, that in addition to making clear that we're not eliminating liability of the contractor, I think in paragraph 14, the lien waiver and the warranty ought to just be furnished to the property owner. And I would propose that we delete the "if requested" words at the end.
All right. Any further proposed amendments or discussion? Okay, so I'm just going to ask for a straw poll of the board. Anybody, Alderman, sorry.
If I may,
Sure.
to address Alderman Dimmitt's request, I would propose to strike the words "and the approved contractor" from the second paragraph of the property owner information form. And the second sentence, strike the words "in turn I expect thee," and replace it with "any." So the second sentence would be, "any contractor to be properly licensed, insured, and bonded." And the hold harmless, inapplicable to contractors.
Right. Would that accomplish your intent?
It does. Okay, thank you.
So why don't we do this then as amendments?
To approve it as.
So, right, so we'll do this as amendments. So we'll take them seriatim. Does everybody understand the proposed amendments that were offered by Alderman Dimmitt? Just give me a shake of the head so I know. All right. All in favor of making those amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed to those amendments? Very good. The first amendment that was offered by Alderwoman Sims was to clarify the fiscal year. Does everybody understand what is meant by that?
Yes.
All right, so we'll amend that to put in, what, the actual dates of the...
I would just put calendar year.
Yeah, calendar year, okay, thank you. So, is everybody okay with that amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed to that amendment? And the final amendment offered by Alderwoman Sims was the
Number 14.
Paragraph 14.
paragraph 14, the, I can't remember what it was.
Drop.
If requested.
Yes, if requested, that we furnish, that will be furnished to the person. So, does everybody understand that proposed amendment? Yeah, okay, very good. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed to that amendment? All right, so we have now an amended resolution. I'm going to go ahead and renew Alderman Leahy's
We'll amend.
motion.
We'll amend the motion to ask for the acceptance of Resolution 1084.1 as amended.
Second.
And the same second from Alderman Lockmiller. So, is there any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none. All in favor of Resolution 1084.1 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Very good. The resolution will be adopted. Resolution number 1092 is the next up. And Alderman Kramer, do we have a synopsis of this resolution?
We do, Your Honor. Resolution number 1092 covers the donation, sponsorships, and facility naming policy, a resolution of our city. approving a policy on donation sponsorships and facility naming to be used in conjunction with the City of Brentwood's fundraising efforts. Parks and Recreation Department of our city is recommending that we adopt a donation sponsorships and facility naming policy as the city, as well as other organizations such as the Brentwood Century Foundation seek alternate funding to supplement the city's annual budget. Donation sponsorships and facility naming policies should be established to ensure that those gifts keep with the mission, philosophy, and policies of our city and occur within an ethical framework that preserves the integrity of municipal making processes. This is resolution number 1092.
All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion to adopt 1092.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the board adopt resolution 1092, and it's my understanding that Eric is here to answer any questions from the board. Are you raising your hand for questions?
Yes.
Eric's being tentative, like he maybe doesn't want to come up.
I didn't want to come up if there's no questions.
Yeah, well, there you go. Alderman Leahy.
I have a question on section 3, authorization levels, where it establishes in A that the employee shall not accept. But in section 5, on page 3, in subsection A, gift to employees, it has the responsibility of no significant value to avoid the appearance of influence. I'm not sure if those two correlate with each other. If you're not setting it up that they're not acceptable, why do I have to have something that says it's not of influence of value?
Yeah, the thing is there's things that, all employees get, and which is spelled out in letter, or number 2, things like pens, pencils, notepads. There's times during the holiday seasons where we'll get cookies, things like that. And so I think that's what's being spelled out in number 5 as well. So as we get those type of things, we're supposed to be sending out appropriate acknowledgement of those type of small gifts. Not $5,000, under the table type things. Those are the things that are illegal.
I'm going to ask a somewhat loaded question, if I may, of Eric, and I believe the city administrator might be able to help bring in some extra perspective.
Do you have a permit to carry the loaded question?
No, sir, I do not. Nor is it concealed.
Well, go ahead.
During the Christmas seasons, the holiday seasons, it is very much known that residents of the city of Brentwood leave gifts for the postmen, the trash men, these type of services that are coming through. I know that we get gifts to the police officers and the firefighters. Our current policy does not prevent us from allowing the residents to do that, does it?
I think and I'll look at Paul, I believe our policy is under $25, correct? So anything under $25.
So, yeah, and this rearrangement isn't really changing any of that.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I don't have a question except that my name is misspelled.
Oh,
on
Jiminy.
All right, we can probably correct that, yes.
So there is a form somewhere.
A scrivener, we can call that a scrivener's error, I think. and
Spell
we
my
can-
name right.
We can get that corrected. Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Yeah. Are we okay? We do have a synopsis. Oh, okay, great. All in favor of adopting resolution number 1092, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed to adopting 1092? Seeing none, by unanimous vote, the board has adopted resolution 1092. Moving right along to resolution 1093, that makes sense. Let's see, Alderman Kramer, do we have a synopsis of 1093?
Yes, sir. We do have a recently formed synopsis for resolution number 1093.
Fresh off the pen.
Fresh off the pen.
I love it.
Of our city administrator.
Absolutely. This covers the resolution opposing any increases in truck size and weight, ultimately causing serious safety and funding issues, whereas the primary responsibility of our city and the Brentwood Board of Aldermen is to serve the legislative body of Brentwood. The city of Brentwood is concerned for the welfare and safety of our residents and families, and as well as the conditions and its infrastructure. And the city of Brentwood sits directly between Interstate 64, the new I-64, and 44, Interstate 170, leaving us with a high amount of truck traffic. As we know, no truck trips start or stop on the interstates. These trucks do leave the interstate and come onto our local roads for delivery, fuel, or rest, and the Public Safety Committee has reviewed information contained in Resolution 1093 and recommends that it be presented to the Board of Aldermen for their consideration this evening, as introduced by Alderwoman O'Neill and Alderman Leahy.
All right, thank you. I'd ask for a motion to adopt Resolution 1093.
So moved.
Second, Your Honor.
Moved by Alderwoman O'Neill and seconded by Alderman Leahy that we adopt 1093. Is there any discussion? And then, being that they brought the resolution to us, I'm going to allow them the chance to speak first.
You go ahead.
Currently, in the state legislature, there is a push to pass a new state ordinance allowing for longer trucks with heavier weight. The state and the municipal league have reached out, asking for the municipalities affected by such to kind of weigh in and say, is this a good thing or a bad thing? About 4 months ago, I brought it to the board's attention and asked you all to hopefully look into it, and they were looking for letters from the elected officials. This is now the last week of the legislative session, and the bill unfortunately has made it to the floor, if I'm not mistaken, at this point. Whether it gets a vote or not is still to be seen. What we're looking for is to let them at least hear from the local municipalities that this type of change would not be in the best interest of safety. The federal highway department has evaluated this whole request, and they have taken the action of not approving it. So the industry is going state by state, looking to try to get it changed in the state levels. So the resolution is to at least let them know that this type of change may not be acceptable for the city of Brentwood.
Alderman O'Neill?
Yes. My Honda Element is aerodynamically challenged. On a highway, the air that comes past the semi is noticeable, and if the trucks get longer, mine won't be the only car that feels that, I'm sure. And the whole idea of people texting, of the people without their eyes on the road, makes accidents with this kind of truck even more dramatic. As Andy said, it's a push by all of the people who are shipping all those things that we're buying online, and they want to pack the cars, pack the trucks, get them to us quickly, which is admirable, but not at the expense of safety. So where our resolution will not probably make a huge difference in the legislature, it would be good to go on record and say, no, we're not in favor of this.
All right, thank you. Alderman Weege.
So I agree with Kathy that I don't think this will really matter, but I looked into it, and, you know, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be passing this resolution, and I think if you dig into who's funding this very aggressive and modern marketing effort, it may not be purely for the safety of individuals. It could be a competitor. If I owned a railroad, I would probably be against longer trucks myself. So I don't think it's appropriate for the board to pass this resolution. I don't think it really matters. I think we're playing into a bigger marketing thing here.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the resolution?
Your Honor, I have a quandary. Sorry.
Quandaries permitted.
Wait,
Talk about it. Maybe we'll help you sort it out.
Okay, all right. Am I mistaken, did the board recently entertain a similar resolution at the last meeting, similar subject?
I don't believe so.
We did not? Okay. All right. I withdraw my quandary.
All right. Quandary withdrawn. Any further discussion of this resolution? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a show of hands because I suspect the vote may not be unanimous. All in favor of adopting Resolution 1093, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I count. All right. All against adopting Resolution 1093, raise your hand. 1, 2, and am I counting an abstention?
Me?
Yeah.
I voted for
Oh,
yes.
you voted?
6.
You voted yes. So 6, I'm sorry. I didn't
Yeah.
catch you on the first one. My vote. All right, so by a vote of 6 to 2, the resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Board.
All right, moving, I think that does it for resolutions this evening. We are on to the thrilling subject of accounts against the city. Alderman Dimmitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had an opportunity to go over the warrant list with the city administrator, and I would move for approval of the warrant list in the amount of $303,087.16.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the board approve the warrant list in the amount stated as submitted. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Waggy?
Yes.
All right, I count a vote of 8-0, so by a vote of 8-0, the warrant list is approved as submitted. Item number 17 is reports of committees and department heads. The first up is my report. I just have two things for this evening. The first is we are going to, sadly, and I apologize for this, have to cancel the special meeting that was scheduled for the 10th of May. Yeah, we did a preparatory session prior to this meeting tonight, and quite frankly, we don't have everything in order for it, and I'd much rather the meeting go well than kind of struggle through it. So, in an abundance of caution, I've decided to cancel that meeting. So there will be no special meeting of the Board of Aldermen on the 10th of May, as was scheduled previously. We will reschedule it. The second item is the 353 Corporation, which is scheduled to meet that same evening, will meet at 5:30. And so those of you who are members of the 353 Corporation, you will have a meeting of that corporation at 5:30 in the rec center as planned. So
I'm on that group, but I have a commitment till 6 that evening.
Okay.
So I will be late, but I will be in attendance.
Great.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep. Okay, that does it for me. Public Safety Committee, Alderman Plufka.
No report other than to say that our next meeting is the last Wednesday of the month, and I'm frantically trying to get to my calendar here to tell you. It is the 30th of May, and it will be here in this building, in this room at 5:30. Thank you.
Public Works, Alderman Lockmiller.
Our next meeting will be here on this Wednesday, the 9th, at 4:30. We're going to open bids on the street repaving, dumpsters in Brentwood Forest. We're going to listen to a presentation, a friend of Alderman Leahy's, regarding alternatives to mosquito fogging. We're going to talk about guys with metal detectors digging up treasures in our park, and beekeeping in people's backyards. So, one other thing on the agenda, which has stirred up a lot of bees, is we're going to be putting out an RFP for trash collecting through private contractors. And this is just to get some type of ideas, an apples-to-apples comparison on what a private contractor would charge and what currently it costs the city to provide this service. There's rumors flying around that we're going to start charging fees. That's not even on the radar. We just, I think it's prudent from time to time that services be compared to private services for an apples-to-apples comparison to make sure we're keeping our costs down and still giving a quality service to the citizens. Citizens are, of course, invited to participate in the meeting. So once again, that'll be here this Wednesday at 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, I think our Director of Planning and Development has a special use permit for us to consider this evening.
So last summer, I think it was August of 2017, the Board of Aldermen helped staff kind of tweak the ordinance related to special use permits, and in particular, the request for businesses to have like just storage containers for overflow of inventory. So one of the changes that was made was for any request for those storage containers to be used by businesses for overflow or for extra merchandise was supposed to come to the Board of Aldermen. So we have the request tonight. You are familiar with the particular business and their annual request. But Bed Bath & Beyond is again requesting temporary storage containers for their store inventory. This, it's again a request the same as last year for 12 storage containers behind the store, just north of Rose Avenue. They would be set up in similar fashion that they were last year. And again, the containers are there for a temporary basis to help with their college pack and hold program. And I will have to say, the store manager, in fact, is here, Byron Worthen, he's in the audience tonight. But I have to say, the last 2 years, it's been really, and probably because he's manager, it's been really easy, much easier to work with Bed Bath & Beyond. They have certainly reduced the duration of time period. I think it started out when I first got here 120 days, and now it's down to 82. And I think last year they even removed the containers a few days earlier, before that. So anyway, but again, until maybe some other things change, I would recommend that the request for the storage containers be granted again this year. And that would be for 82 days for a time period to start June 18th and end September 7th. So again, if you have questions for me or for the store manager, we can entertain those.
Are there any questions for the Director of Planning and Development? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the special use permit as applied.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Dimmitt, seconded by Alderwoman O'Neill, that the board approve the special use permit for Bed Bath & Beyond as applied. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the special use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And by unanimous vote, the special use permit is approved. Ways and Means Committee, Alderman Dimmitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting last week, and I posted on Nextdoor a summary of some of the things that was discussed. One thing I failed to address in that Nextdoor posting was one issue that we took up was an increase in insurance for the employees and their family members. The health insurance went up 2%, and the dental was up 9.9%, but we did not take any steps to change how we were paying that in terms of whether it was for the employee. We're still going to go ahead and pick up 100% for the employee and pick up 50% of the health insurance for the family members, and but on the dental, the employee would pick up the cost for their family members.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
No reports.
And Madam City Administrator.
No report, Mayor Thornton.
And Madam Excise Commissioner.
No report.
And Madam Library Liaison.
Yes, I have some exciting news.
All right.
The St. Louis Post-Dispatch does a go section of excellent things through the city that are voted on by whoever decides they want to vote, apparently. And the library staff was unaware that there was a category called Best Public Library for Kids. It turns out that of the top 5, Brentwood's small little library is number 5. The two major ones, the downtown Central Library and the headquarters, of course, topped the list, and 2 other of the county branches, which are large and busy, were on it. So for us to come in as number 5 was a surprise, and everybody's quite thrilled about it.
Very nice. Thank you.
Good job, good job.
A smattering of applause.
I don't have any news from the Municipal League this evening. Are there any announcements? Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Ward 3 meeting for the month of May will be Tuesday night, the 29th, here in the council room, starting at 7 o'clock for informal meetings with the aldermen. All are invited. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Seeing none. All right, before we start item number 19 on the agenda, I just want to say that these 2 items that are on the agenda, some people have, I guess, intimated or implied or that they affect me personally, and that's not really the case, I don't think. But because I am very concerned that the operation of our government proceed in a way that is free of any conflict at all, I think it's more appropriate if at this time I go ahead and turn the gavel over to Alderman Kramer to conduct these next 2 items. So with that, I'm going to recuse myself for the rest of the meeting and let Alderman Kramer take over.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, moving forward on the meeting, we're up to 2 items for new business. And it looks as though the best way to handle these is to attain an emotion, a first and a second, and then move on to discussion of that new business. The first item is item A, to discuss whether the city should hire an intellectual property attorney for the purpose of determining the city of Brentwood's right to ownership of some or all the intellectual property generated. Before we get to discussion, which would be good to get to, if we could just have a first and a second for that motion.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. Any questions regarding that particular motion? So, Mr. City Attorney, do we need to take a vote for that motion or to have the discussion right now?
We're moving it to discuss it.
Do you have to have a vote to have discussion? Is that your question? I'm sorry, what was your question?
It's okay. We had the first and the second for the motion.
Motion and the second.
Now we can discuss the motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay? We'll take the person who made the first, Alderman Plufka, please.
I helped to bring this motion to the agenda, and I'll just explain my reasoning. One was in the application that was submitted by our city to win this jointly win this award between GeoCompile and the city of Brentwood, described the way in which this methodology was created, and in several occasions within that page or so summary, 2-page summary, they talk about a partnership between both the city and with this company, and that the companies work together, the company and the city work together to create this methodology in the first place. I'm not an intellectual property attorney, but it sounded to me like there was a partnership. I think even the word partnership was used in the application, in the description. And I wonder out loud, and I'm wondering tonight, whether or not there might be some property interest in this that the city retains by virtue of this partnership and this co-development of this methodology. In addition to that, I also think that there's at least a question to be asked about whether or not access that was given to GeoCompile to this raw data, that their access to that raw data was superior to somebody in the general public, and that by virtue of the mayor's relationship as mayor of the city, I think that even though the data points themselves were already out there and were already out there in the public, I think access to them was, I believe, was maybe somewhat limited. At least I'd like to have a conversation about that, or have a discussion about that, and to determine if whether or not that alone, or that combined with this partnership notion that's described, gives the city of Brentwood some property interest in the resulting methodology.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Plufka. Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This popped up a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, thereabouts. Right. And when I read the application, I had questions about whether or not the city had any ownership interest in the software. As Alderman Plufka had mentioned, the application that was submitted to Missouri Municipal League, MML, contained 3 or 4 statements that were strong indicators that the city was working together with this company, GeoCompile. And when I read that, the first thing that popped in my mind is there is a statement from the city that it has affirmatively stated that it worked with GeoCompile to develop software, to develop cloud-based applications. My first thought was that the city clearly is of the position that it has an ownership interest in this software. Saying that you have an interest in the ownership or an ownership interest does not mean you necessarily have an ownership interest. There has to be some contribution by the city, I would imagine. But it raised enough of a concern to me that I thought it would be best if we had somebody, as Alderman Plufka said, who knows what they're talking about, who is not attached to this, and to render an opinion for my benefit, and hopefully for the board's benefit, to help us decide whether or not what we need to do. is there city property that needs to be protected? And if so, what steps do we need to take to protect that property? Just as we would if it was some tangible piece of property. It's not something that you can hold in your hand, it's computer software. That was the reason that I thought we needed to go forward on this. I am looking for some guidance, though, and I don't know if it'd be from the city attorney or from the city administrator. How do we go about hiring an intellectual property attorney? Number one. Number two, is that the extent of it? Or do we need to look at retaining the services of somebody else, another attorney, or do we think that that would be enough? I don't know if somebody deals with business concepts or anything like that, or if we just think, again, an IP lawyer would be sufficient. And if so, how do we do that? Do we bid that out? Or who makes the determination who would be retained?
Please, sir.
I'd like to take a look at the ordinance concerning the process to hire special counsel, but I gather that this is somewhat time sensitive, that you're interested in getting on with this. I would be happy to recommend 3 IP, take a look at professional journals, reputations of others and such, and recommend 3 IP lawyers to the city administrator if you wish to delegate the selection to the administrator. And maybe the 2 of us, or between the 2 of us, or she, make a choice among 3 well-qualified IP lawyers in the area.
Okay.
And I would think an IP lawyer is sufficient.
Is enough.
Not, just so my union doesn't get on me. If you want to hire more lawyers, that's perfect.
To the Alderman Plufka and Dimmitt's questions, is it your determination, or was it your idea initially to attain a report? Ideally, I'm thinking there would be a cap on the cost. We should put a limitation on the cost so it's not open-ended, or was that your intention? And second of all, did you intend for the information to be brought back to the full board or to a committee?
Well, first of all, I'm not in favor of putting a cap on that. I'm not concerned. I don't think we're talking a tremendous amount of money.
Okay.
Generate a letter.
For somebody to take a look at this, I would imagine, I would hope within a few hours,
okay,
they would be able to, and I don't know what would have to be done, but I would certainly want staff, and I would fully expect staff to do nothing other than to cooperate with the attorney. So, but with that being said, I just still don't think we're going to be talking that much money to where we'd be concerned about having a cap on that. Right. And yeah, I would like to have the opinion brought back to the entire board so that we know, not just, again, as I see it, the issues are, number one, does the city have a property interest? And number two, if so, what does the city need to do to protect that interest? And what percentage, if they can come up with that?
Mr. City Attorney, to the extent that this would be considered a legal matter, would this issue be taken up in closed session once the report is received?
It certainly can. The choice as to whether to do so or not is up to the board.
Okay. So, City Administrator Conde, are you of the opinion that you would receive the report and then send a notification out to the full board that it's been received and prepared for dissemination, and then ostensibly there would be questions? So if we had a closed session, that same attorney providing the report would come to the closed session?
That's correct.
Is there anything that we're asking for that you think we should be more formal with or change?
I don't think so.
Okay. Other questions? Alderman Dimmitt.
Well, just following up on that, I don't know that it's necessarily proper at this point to decide whether or not we go into closed session. I mean, that's a vote on the board. The board would vote whether or not to go into closed session. My understanding is that the closed session is available, as city attorney had stated. It's an option. We can do that. It gives us, for certain matters, we can go into closed session. But ultimately, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm of the opinion that we should be doing this out in the open. I don't want to go into closed session on that. I think it's premature to have a vote on that at this point as well.
Here, the reason why I asked was the information will become available. We'll be notified from the city administrator, and then ostensibly then at the next meeting, we'll bring it up during the agenda and vote on at that time how to entertain it open or closed, or do you think you want to make it for the next, would we have it in time for the next agenda?
Which is what?
21st.
I should point out, I will not be here on the 21st,
Okay, that complicates things maybe a little.
nor will Lisa Corkenmeyer,
June 15th,
Oh.
June 20th.
nor will Mayor Thornton. So the acting city administrator will be Eric Grunenfelder.
Oh, I think we should definitely do it the 21st.
Is Mr. O'Keefe out also?
Yeah, second that.
All right.
What's the date? The 21st of May.
So
Give me a
just
second.
if I could, make sure that we've got the motion clear, and then we'll entertain further discussion and questions here. This is a motion for the city to retain an intellectual property attorney to determine the Brentwood's right to ownership or some or all of the intellectual property generated by
Geotech.
GeoCompile LLC or by,
Jointly, I mean,
Right.
well, the subject matter of that was the MML application.
okay?
Right, the innovation
All
award.
that software, all the cloud-based applications, the IP lawyer would be retained to take a look at that and determine whether the city has an ownership interest, if so, how much, and number three, how will we protect it if we do?
Is that motion sufficient, Alderwoman, City Administrator Conde?
Yes, it is.
Alderman Leahy?
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind the curve. It is my understanding, and if I may, can I ask the question as city administrator?
Absolutely.
In developing this potential award and this program, it is my understanding that the city provided the data points from the GPS positioning in the cars, which we had asked for by Alderman Kramer about 2.5, 3 years earlier, and nobody could give us that data
That is correct.
to work with. So the company then wrote the program using the data points to be able to give us a visual interpolation of what the data points were telling us.
That is correct.
Now, I'm not aware that the city helped write any of the program. All we did was give them the data points of the GPS.
That is correct.
So I'm questioning if we're looking to get an IP attorney involved, I'm under the impression we would have to show that we contributed to the writing of the program. All we did was give them the data, which was at the time not in public domain, because we couldn't get it to the board,
Wouldn't that be
because
the
the
point?
data wasn't available.
Wouldn't that be the point?
Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you, Mr. Alderman Leahy. That's the point. That's why I think we need somebody. You know, if you, the classic partnership.
Yes, sir.
You and I go into business, you're the brains of the operation, I have some money, and I don't know the first thing about it. So we form a partnership to do something. The fact that you did all the sweat equity and the fact that I only paid money doesn't mean that my interest is any less or I have no interest at all of this. I still have an interest by virtue of the fact that my contribution was the money. My whole point is when I read that application, I don't know what role, what extent of the contribution the city made. Was it simply providing the GPS data, or was there more? And that's where I think the IP attorney will come in to help us and say,
Absolutely.
that attorney, he or she may say, you know, providing that city property, that data, the GPS data, is not enough to result in ownership. But I would rather have somebody who knows what they're talking about than me telling us that that's the case.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm trying to get an understanding what contribution, other than the GPS data points that we had from the police that we could not do anything with, did the city give to GeoPile to compile to develop a program that we got to evaluate?
I think the intention is to
I'm not
flush that
aware.
out, is to flush that topic out.
Isn't
on
that the
record
question
and
we're
get it-
asking the IP attorney to flesh out?
Yes.
We're going to flush that out.
Okay,
One
I'm
more.
asking the city administrator because they were the party that helped draft and submit us for an award. I'm trying to get a heads up as to what it is that we're looking at. I don't know the answer, other than I knew we had data we never could get any information from.
I think you've answered the question.
Then my premise is the data was just that contribution.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on this motion? Alderman Lockmiller.
I think this got answered, but I just want to make sure. We're just the scope of this work of this IP attorney is just the situation at hand.
Right.
It's not developing a policy going forward.
Correct.
No.
Okay. Thanks.
That would be my motion.
That could come later, but just this
Whoever made it.
motion is to hire the attorney.
That's a good question. I think that's right.
Any other questions or discussion? Calling for the question, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
May I pass, please?
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Wakey?
Yes.
I will vote in the affirmative.
And we don't have, that wasn't exactly a bill, so we don't have an ordinance, but the motion has passed. And so, Madam City Administrator, if you could please facilitate the handling of that motion. And we're up to 19B.
Could I
Yes, sir.
ask that the minutes be clear and the motion be clear that the selection of counsel is to be made by Ms. Akonde, and if you wish me to participate, I will do so. I just looked at the ordinance on
Hiring
special counsel, and there's a reference to the mayor making a selection. So I think you may wish to be clear that the motion is for the city administrator with the advice of the city attorney to select an IP lawyer to conduct the service, to provide the service.
So do you wish to amend your motion so?
We've already voted on it. Should we have-
I mean,
It's a retroactive.
I think can't we just, yeah.
It's a retroactive. Are
I
you
mean,
okay with that?
that came up during discussion.
I understood that to be what we
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about.
I think clarified, yeah, I think
Making
that-
sure.
Thank you.
that's fine.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir. Up to 19B on the agenda. And once again, we're going to try to get to the heart of the matter. And this is a motion that the city would, my understanding is the motion the city to decline to accept the 2018 Missouri Municipal League Innovation Award. Would someone like to make that motion, or is that, am I
So
stating it
moved.
incorrect?
Yep, so moved.
I have a first by Alderman Waggy and a second.
Second.
Second by Alderwoman O'Neill. And now to discussion or questions regarding that motion, Alderman Waggy.
Yeah, so, you know, last year's Innovation Award I was very proud of with the sidewalks and everything. I think there was some really good work done here with GPS, but it's caused a lot of questions. I'm not looking forward to the moment when Bola is down at Margaritaville at the Lake of the Ozarks receiving her Innovation Award. So I think we should direct staff to submit a letter saying basically that we are not accepting this award, or request that they rescind it from the city of Brentwood because of all the questions that have come about because of the application. We're getting to the bottom of all these questions, but I'm not proud of this award.
Madam City Administrator, what would be the logistics of such a direction?
I will draft a letter, circulate it for the board, make sure that there's approval before it's sent out.
In terms of the timeline and the MML?
It's not till September.
Okay. So, all right. Any questions regarding or discussion, any further discussion?
With that,
Alderman Plufka?
with that timeline in mind, I'm just wondering out loud, if we get a letter back from the intellectual property attorney chosen by the city administrator and city council, and his or her conclusion is that we do not have any interest in the intellectual property created because we did not participate in any meaningful way, if that's the rationale, then I fully support what Alderman Wegge is saying here, and I feel similarly that we should, under those circumstances, return or decline the award. However, if the conclusion is otherwise, and that it indicates that by virtue of the data being of particular interest, right, or that there was some other participation on the part of the city that's not yet been fully brought out, then I don't know. I would want to revisit the question under that context. If they believe we retain some ownership interest, then it was to some extent a partnership, and the application, and the award was provided under those circumstances. I don't know. I mean, I understand where Alderman Wegge is coming from. I just given that the fact that we've got until September to make this decision, I don't know, I just brought that up.
Alderman Weggie, would you want to consider amending your motion to have a toggle in there, or?
No, I think we make the decision tonight.
Okay. Alderman Leahy?
No, I'll pass.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just by way of clarification, Bull, I don't know if you can help me out on this. This award, this MML award, Innovation Award, it is, obviously, it's awarded to municipalities, government bodies, but since this was this a joint application? Was it on behalf of the city, or was it the city and this GeoCompile?
It was on behalf of the city.
Okay.
It's very similar to the application that we submitted last year. We didn't own that technology. We found it and we brought it to the board's attention, and we did a beta test and used it and saw the value, the cost reduction, the efficiency. So Dan went out and found it, and that's why we submitted the application, because sharing that knowledge with other municipalities throughout the state of Missouri could help them also save money. This is really no different.
And to Alderman Weggie's motion, if we can look forward, crystal ball, and the IP attorney comes back and says, Brentwood, you have no ownership interest in this, then would you believe that we would not qualify for that award, since it would be GeoCompile? If you can speak to that issue.
I couldn't say. I wouldn't want to say. I don't know.
Just to pass along my thoughts, I'm in a little bit of an awkward position because I normally sit there, but if I was sitting there, here's what I would say, and that is that I feel similarly to Alderman Plufka, and that is in this very highly unique situation, I kind of would like to hear what the intellectual property attorney has or would have to say. Although I do absolutely understand the tone and the thought process behind the motion, and it's a very difficult situation. And I'm hoping that someone else will at least ask another question to debate this. Alderwoman O'Neill.
I shall, thank you. As I understand it, the application gave a monetary figure that had to do with something that the city provided. And yet, from looking at Ways and Means and having Karen go back and look at payments, there was nothing there that substantiated it. So if I'm reading that correctly, there's something in that application that makes me very uncomfortable. It doesn't seem transparent. And when that happens, I would like to see transparency. So I'm not comfortable with accepting this. Am I reading that correctly, that there was monetary?
What was in the application, I believe, was what the cost would be to provide that service. Not the fact that, and I believe we've provided a report, an ADP report to the board that shows that GeoCompile has never been a vendor of the city. And that, as your recollection, as best as it may be, that I have never presented an ordinance for an agreement to the board. So when I say there's been no formal relationship, that's what I mean, because I don't have the independent authority to approve contracts without bringing it to the board. So that's the only additional information I can share to help you clarify in your mind the decisions you all need to make.
My understanding is, just thinking out loud here, GeoCompile, that entity was formed just for the formality, the formality purpose of working through this project.
Right.
Is that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Alderman Lockmiller?
I agree with Alderwoman O'Neill. I think there were some liberties, I guess, taken with that application that maybe, I don't want to call them untruths, but there are things I don't feel comfortable with.
Mr. City Attorney, one second. Mr. City Attorney, are you able to offer an opinion on the question this? If it's determined that the material submitted to the Missouri Municipal League was not a collaboration of the city. The city did not have a part in the consideration, the process presented for consideration. Is that a award that would be acceptable? If you care to answer.
I take guidance from your award last year. We didn't have anything to do with that software program that we utilized to monitor the streets. We identified a problem. We looked for a solution. We found a vendor, had available on the shelf, or in this instance, created a solution to the data information that was desired. I see no difference between the two.
Yeah.
Alderman Leahy, thank you.
Yeah, that, and the gentlemen and ladies, that's where I'm at. We had for 2.5, 3 years, data that we couldn't do anything with. The mayor and whoever he correlated with gave us a visual that reflected what all that data told us. That helped us help the police department provide a better service for the citizens. I don't see a problem with the city of Brentwood and Geotech going to the municipal league saying, here's something that helps you provide a better service. We've all agreed it already did that. Thus, the municipal league says, you know what, you guys rate, this year we got something new out there and Brentwood's leading the way. Change of hands and stuff hasn't happened. And nobody has been behind the scenes doing this arrangement. It was presented to us as we kept asking questions, and we saw the first draft and then tweaks to get it up to what we now have. To the point that this board even said, let's put GPS on all city vehicles. The intent there is to give us better service to the residents for the different departments that have vehicles out there in the community. I don't see why we're trying to now belittle the fact that we've won an award and we want to split hairs over it. I'd just be glad that we're moving in a forward direction.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number one, I don't see this being the same as the application that was submitted in 2017. I did not read that application, so I'll say that with the caveat that I have not looked at it. However, what our Director of Public Works did, he took a process that was in existence, a way to do something, and he applied that to repairing sidewalks. What has been happened, nobody needed anything from the city in order to do that. What is done here is, again, we have an application submitted by the city itself. There's an admission on the part of the city that this program was written because it had access to city property, that city property being the GPS data. I take that as but for the city providing that, this application, this software would not have been created. The reason it was able to be created is because we gave access to city-owned property to somebody. I don't know who, GeoCompile was not even in existence at the time. Now, as to Alderwoman O'Neill's point, I think she brings up an excellent point. The very last two sentences in the application calls out what the cost would be, and then the last sentence says the city of Brentwood has budgeted, the police department has budgeted $26,640. The implication is that the city was paying somebody that amount of money. Now, once we looked at that at Ways and Means, we found that's not the case. That was, that statement was at best inaccurate, and at worst it was misleading. And I think Alderwoman O'Neill makes a great point. I don't know what else is in there, but that alone causes me to have some real concerns about us getting this award.
Alderman Weggie.
Yeah, so I mean, I will not, I think what was done was awesome, right? I mean, we've all seen the GPS, I mean, and it has been helpful. It has been great for our police, it's been great for our town. But if I had seen that application come across the board, we would not have accepted it. We would not have submitted that with those sentences in there because it was just, it wasn't true. So whether we have some intellectual property on this or not, I don't think matters on the award. We still have the benefit of this program, and we can decide how we move forward with it. But I think for the purposes of the award and what we're telling other municipalities and how to replicate this, I don't think we should accept it.
Alderwoman Sunny Sims.
Thank you. With one M, I echo my fellow Alderman Weggie, Ward 2. I think the waters are too muddied. I mean, we can still do good, and we can still cost save, and we can still develop the software. Can you imagine what the acceptance speech is going to look like? I mean, I don't think we get.
There is none.
But still, I don't think we get out from underneath this issue by accepting it. I mean, I don't want an asterisk by my name when I win. I mean, I think it's, I still think it's a great thing that, this technology is being honed and developed, and we'll figure out the IP issue as the subject matter experts come in. But I just, it's too bad it happened, but I think this is the best way to free ourselves from this issue.
One last polling of our city administrator. Madam City Administrator, do you have any further comment on this issue?
It's not my decision.
Okay.
I call the question.
Second.
Mr. City Attorney, I am acting chair. Am I a voter or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Clarify into which category.
I have long been of the view that the residents of the ward are not deprived of their full voice on the board by the reason of their alderperson's need to fulfill additional functions. Therefore, I am of the view that the alderperson continues to vote as a legislator and has the prerogative to break a tie.
Two hats and one chair. All right, so restating the motion again, this is a motion that the city declines to accept the 2018 Missouri Municipal League Innovation Award from the motion maker and the second. Is that correct, to your knowledge?
Yeah, so for clarification, a yes vote is that we will not, means we are not
Yes vote
accepting the
means you are
award.
not,
So
voting
it's
for the city
double
not
negative
to
action.
accept or to, yes, reverse our
Could
position.
you repeat that?
Not accept.
A yes vote equals that the city would decline to
Okay.
accept the 2018 Missouri Municipal League Innovation Award at the future date. Any questions regarding that motion? And a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Dimmitt?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
No.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman O'Neill?
Yes.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
That motion does carry. We have no further items on the agenda, and so I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Public
You still
comment.
got
Oh, we have public
item
comment.
20?
Sorry. Would any person like to come forward and give us a public comment? Now's your opportunity. Please give us your name if you could and your address or thereabouts.
Karen Smith on Harrison. I just have two comments. One is in regards to the firehouse. I was wondering how we built the firehouse without it being ADA compliant. And then the question about, because the ADA compliance it applies to all public facilities. And is the firehouse considered public because it is a city-owned building? Or does it only become public if we try and use the training room? I guess that would be a question that I would want to, I was not able to follow that in the discussion, and it would be helpful to understand that in order to understand how I would like the outcome of that discussion to be. And then the second one is in regards to the discussion that you all have just had, and I'm trying to understand kind of what happened, and I'm not sure that I have all the information that you have. But one area of consideration in regards to, I think, maybe what you're trying to decide is whether the data that's being produced by this partnership is your data or not. And one area you may want to look into is in healthcare. When you go to see your doctor and you give information about your health to that doctor, that's data that you're exchanging with your physician or healthcare provider, and that is still considered your data, even though they have it in their hands. And they have a lot of restrictions around how they can use that data, and how and where who and they can share it with and how it can be shared. And so that might be something helpful to look at when you're trying to understand how to proceed forward. I personally appreciate everything that the city has been doing to improve the safety of our community and the visibility of the police in the community. However, I do think you have to proceed with caution, especially when you are dealing with data. I do see a big difference between the award and application from last year around the sidewalk and this one. That was a product that was in the market, and we looked at a different application in using that product, and it didn't involve an elected official. I think that really muddies the water, and it's unfortunate that the city and the Board of Aldermen have been placed in this position. I don't really feel like what happened here was transparent. At least it doesn't appear to me to be that way coming from the public. The process of the award itself seems to help to be promoting a service that one of the elected official is involved in. I just feel like there's some conflicts there. And I'm not sure about the processes. I mean, the city may want to consider the processes about how these things happen in the future going forward. If city personnel help develop something without a contract, and I'm not sure when the Board of Aldermen kind of found out about all of this, and then an award was submitted, and I'm not sure, again, if you all knew what award was being submitted. It just seems like there's a lot that we could do to maybe clean up our processes to, protect all of you as you try and do your jobs, and also protects the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? Any matter of public interest? Now is the opportunity. Any reactions or response from the alderman? I guess, Alderman Lockmiller?
The firehouse is a facility that just keeps on giving.
Yeah.
It's getting moldy.
Mr. City Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is because it is a public building, the very nature of the fact that it's a public building, it needs to be ADA compliant. And the fact that we happen to have a area on the second floor may have provided a claim against that, but which we haven't received to date, but it still needs to be ADA compliant. Is that correct?
I think that's a fair synopsis.
Thank you. Now we have motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.